is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith. Here today, Harris Faulkner, Andrea Tanteros, host of The Independents on our sister network, Fox Business's Kennedy, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, the Honorable Judge Alex Ferrer, who hosted his own show, Judge Alex, for nearly a decade. And today, with all due respect, Judge Alex, you are outnumbered, sir.
Couldn't be happier about it.
We love having you. It's great to have you back.
It's great to be back. Thank you. I had such a good time last time.
Order on the couch. I understand.
We're off to a bad start already.
It's
we have
nothing
a
but
lot
fun.
of legal stuff to talk about today.
Of course, and we're going to lean on you for your expertise on that, all things legal, and of course start out with the news of the day, awaiting on the president's big announcement tonight, going it alone. Tonight in primetime, President Obama will announce plans to use his executive powers to make massive changes to America's immigration system, effectively legalizing up to 5 million illegal immigrants. The White House and its backers in Congress saying that without question, the president has the authority to do this, and that his predecessors, both Republican and Democrat, have done the same.
You can't say to a president, don't be an executive, no more than anybody can say to the Congress, don't legislate. He has the legal authority, and there is precedent of every president in modern history.
The president is determined to use all of the authority that he has, it's vested in the presidency, to take the steps that can try to fix some of the problems that everybody acknowledges exist inside our broken immigration system. This is consistent with steps that were taken by President Reagan, President George H.W. Bush, and other presidents over the course of history that have used their executive power to address problems with our broken immigration system.
But Republicans are outraged over what the president is set to do, accusing him of triggering a constitutional crisis and saying he's acting like a monarch.
What President Obama is doing is he is defying the law. He's defying the Constitution. You know, the president quite rightly said just a few weeks ago, his policies were on the ballot all over the country. This last election was a referendum on amnesty, and the American people overwhelmingly rose up and said, no, we don't want lawless amnesty.
So who's right, Judge? I mean, Senator Ted Cruz says we're witnessing a constitutional crisis, and then you heard from Josh Earnest and Nancy Pelosi saying that he's acting within his powers.
Well, every branch seems to want to go for the power grab. The legislature does it with the judiciary all the time. And in this case, the president, in my opinion, is completely wrong. The reason is the president does have a certain amount of authority under his powers to issue executive orders. If he were to say, I'm going to order that the Department of Homeland Security, since we have limited resources, start by deporting criminals. And don't deport anybody who's not a criminal until we've deported all the criminals. That would be within his authority. The difference here is that he's not saying that. That would not offer protection to the people he wants to protect. What he's saying is, I'm going to prevent deportations of these people who the law says should be subject to deportation. And by doing that, what he's doing is he's acting as a legislator. He's rewriting the law. He's turning around and saying, okay, I don't like the way the law is written, and Congress isn't playing ball with me on this and changing the law, so I'm just going to stop the enforcement of the law. And that is a dereliction of his duty as the president. His executive duty is, and the oath he swears, is that he will faithfully enforce the laws.
And this is the problem that Republicans have with all of this, right, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, they say that there isn't a precedent for this, and there really isn't. If you look back at what Ronald Reagan did and 41 did, they were responding to an unintended consequence of an action that Congress already took on immigration to make sure that these kids could stay with their parents. It was a very small, minor tweaking of the law that both of those presidents did. Nothing like the judge just explained. And I do think it's going to cause a constitutional crisis because this likely judge will head to the courts. And what happens if the courts tell President Obama he can't do this? Then what?
Well, first of all, realize that this is going to take time. I mean, unless they can get this heard immediately, which I honestly don't know if they can, unless they can get this heard immediately, I think that what the real effect is, I think that the president finds himself in a situation where the momentum has shifted from being in favor of the Democrats to in favor of the Republicans. And there's an election coming up very soon. And I think what he's trying to do is shift it back by making the Republicans overreact and making them become the disliked party again. If that's the goal and the Republicans bite into it, it doesn't really matter what the court does down the road. It won't make a difference because they will have already soured the American public on the Republican Party.
But they're already soured and split on immigration. You know, a majority of the people in this country want to see immigration reform. They want that. They know the system is broken. They know there are a lot of people here. There should be a better program for guest workers. There should be more visas. And Republicans talk about amnesty. Is this amnesty? Is what the president is doing, will this action equate to amnesty?
No, I don't think it's technically amnesty, because amnesty is giving them citizenship. And there's no...
Are they the same thing, though?
Under no stretch of the imagination is he giving them citizenship.
Okay.
But what he's saying basically...
But are amnesty and citizenship the same thing?
In effect, yes.
Okay.
And what he's saying basically is, I'm not giving them citizenship because I know that, I mean, it's laughable to think that I could do that, okay? But I'm going to stop enforcement, and I'm going to give them work permits, which kind of is the equivalent, if what we expect he's going to say is actually what he's going to say, which is kind of the same thing almost. And as Andrew pointed out, what Bush and Reagan did, which was to about 120,000 people, not 11 million,
right.
Was amnesty had been given to the parents, and basically while the path of citizenship was working to get the children citizenship, they were protecting the children to not split the families. This is taking people and just basically giving them a blanket protection from an existing law that he's supposed to enforce, and that's why I think it's unconstitutional.
Well, and as you were talking about, where does that leave us, though, with the criminals who need to be deported? How will the president phrase it, and what does that mean politically? We just touched on that just a little bit, so let's talk about the political fallout and what that will be if President Obama takes executive action on immigration. A new Wall Street Journal NBC News poll has found 48% of Americans oppose the president doing this with his ExecuPen, as I've called it, compared to 38% in favor of it. Mr. Obama's plan is also facing deep opposition on Capitol Hill, where anger is growing among the GOP, many saying it could derail their agenda before the new Congress even convenes. But Republican Congressman Marlin Stutzman of Indiana urges his party to remain cautious in its response to the president. Watch.
There is a lot of frustration with the president. There's anger with the president. There's a sense that he has just violated the trust of the American people again. We have to guard our tongue. We have to keep the right tone, because we are going to take the Senate back and control that in January, and then we can really fix the problems.
All right, so I want to focus in on what he just said about striking the right tone. Andrea, what does that mean? What is the right tone?
Well, I think we'll have to wait and see what he says this evening. But I think during
No, in terms of Republicans taking the right
well, Republicans have to be very careful, because as the judge pointed out, Obama is banking on Republicans overreaching. He is double daring them into impeaching him. And I think this is all about politics, because he knows when Republicans come back, they could pass a clean border security bill. He doesn't want to be boxed in, Harris. That's why he's acting on his own to try and get out there first and say, I'm going to do this on my own. By the time the courts get to this, this will already have been long gone, because it's going to take a while. But by that point, Republicans will have overreached. They're going to overplay their hand on it. That's what he's banking on.
You know, Judge Alex, and we've talked about your familia coming here, coming from abroad, and your own immigrant journey as your family pertains to. I'm curious, does this compromise the GOP when trying to seek out members of the Hispanic and the Latino community?
Well, I think yes and no. I mean, obviously, the Hispanic community is not fungible. I mean, every Hispanic is not the same as every other Hispanic. You have
just like the black community. Can't speak for everybody.
And some people try to, or think they all think in a block, but they don't. And so there are some who, like me, you know, I am certainly aware that this country is a country of immigrants, but it's also a country of laws. My family came here legally, thank God to the graciousness of the American people opening their arms to us, and you have to follow the law. If you don't follow the law, then where are we? So you can't justify people just basically ignoring the law and then reward them, because what that does is it encourages more breaking of the law. So I think there are Hispanics that say, yes, you know, I want to see my relatives and my family members come over, so I'm in favor of this. And I think there are some that say, you know, I'm all for that, but you've got to do it within the rules. So I don't think it's a block.
You know, Sandra, well, I don't know that we'll hear the president talk about this tonight, but it is one of the things that Americans have expressed in polling and surveys that they care about. And that is the cost and burden on municipalities, on school districts, as these people feather into our communities. Talk to me about that.
Well, no, I think that that's a huge consideration. And obviously, the timing of all this is crucial when you're looking at still a very weak jobs market, an economy that really still has not recovered from the greatest recession since the Great Depression. But House Speaker John Boehner put it best possibly when he said that this announcement tonight, if it is as expected, will poison the well for cooperation with the upcoming Republican-controlled Congress. Isn't that the bottom line? The honeymoon's over. The kumbaya moment is over. And if this happens tonight, we're not going to see that moment where we do see both parties come together.
Yeah, real quickly, Kennedy, I don't think we saw that moment.
Yeah.
I didn't see the group hug. Did you?
No, and both Speaker Boehner and Leader McConnell have said, you know, we don't agree necessarily with the president. He doesn't necessarily agree with us. Maybe we'll find some compromise. That's what you do. But the president trying to box Republicans in, he's making a bad political move. Yeah. And also, I want to point out, Latinos only approve of this measure by 6 percentage points. And I realize that they're not voting in blocks, and people who would assume that they would think that the approval would be like 70, 80%. But it's not. 37% of them disapprove of this unilateral action. So who is it benefiting?
That's
the president is
question.
Contradicting himself and the statements that he's made for the last 4 years on this very action.
Could I just very quickly say this is a constitutional tantrum on behalf of the president, and it's the precedent that it sets that takes us to a very dangerous and ugly place down the road.
Okay, they're giving us the hard rap. Get ready to hear this a lot. You've been Grubered. Hashtag Grubered. The Obamacare architect making yet another video appearance. This guy loves the camera. This time in a campaign ad. It's targeting embattled Democrat Mary Landrieu down in Louisiana. And the makers of Barbie are apologizing after offending a lot of people with a book about a Barbie computer programmer who's not all that good with computers. She needs some people to help her, and they're male. They pulled the book, but is the damage already done? And right after the show, catch more from the couch on the web. Join us for Outnumbered Overtime by logging on to foxnews.com/outnumbered and click on the Overtime tab. We'll be sitting there reading our Twitter and your comments on the live chat. You can get in on the conversation. Chime in while you tune in. Stay close.